started getting interested in temperance about 10 years ago, largely because of the university's amazing resource. I didn't really know much about the history of the temperance movement, and so when I went exploring, it was like an Aladdin's cave. The first thing I got interested in was the Band of Hope, which was a children's movement, which eventually got well over 3.5 million members at a time when the school-age population was only 6 million. And I was fascinated by the iconography and the illustrations, first of all, because that's my background, working in illustration, particularly in books and periodicals. But I then became fascinated in the cultural history of the whole movement and why so many people chose not to drink alcohol, why the movement was so large and why it lasted for so long. So the first thing I looked at was the Band of Hope Review, which was the first national magazine starting in 1851. And this picture here shows why the Band of Hope was so popular, if you like. We've got children here. They're largely fairly well clothed, which isn't an accurate historical representation because many of the children would have been in rags, they would have been street children. But they are signing up to belong to a club, essentially. They're signing up to say that they don't want any alcohol, they're not going to drink it, and they're going to do their best to prevent other people drinking it. And that's another interesting feature, the idea of children as little soldiers or shock troops, which I have explored in a few of my writings. But they went there because it was something for them to do, and the activities and the teaching which the Band of Hope carried out made it so interesting for them that they often wanted more meetings than the adults could provide. And of course, when they grew up, they in turn became adults who worked on the meeting. So my first couple of pieces of research were about that and the children and the adult workers. But I then realised that there was a huge area, much, much more to temperance than that. There are some wonderful pledges, for example. There's the history of Joseph Livesey, founder of the total abstinence movement, one of the 7 men of Preston. And that's actually the reason why we have the archive here, because Livesey was from Preston, our university is in Preston. When the British National Temperance League was looking for a place to store a large part of its archive, it gave it to the university in the 1980s. I then became very interested in the public activities of temperance. I've written on the alternative world of temperance and the parades and the public buildings and of course the songs. Adults and particularly children had songs presented to them every month in the magazines. I also became very, very interested in the appeal to working class people. Temperance was originally, total abstinence, I should say, because temperance itself means moderation, and the total abstinence movement from 1832 blew away, really, the moderation movement. But total abstinence was originally a working class movement, and there were lots and lots of wonderful periodicals, lots and lots of material produced for working people. Some of it beautifully illustrated, and we've got records of people using these images and pictures to put on the walls of their houses. I also became very, very interested in the whole importance of the temperance movement, so much so that I applied to the Heritage Lottery Fund in 2011 and I got a grant of £50,000 to put on 3 exhibitions, one of which is still on now as Demon Drink website, www.demondrink.co.uk. Another one was at the People's History Museum for 8 months and had 30,000 visitors. So one of the books I then wrote was a simple guide, an approachable guide to the temperance movement called Demon Drink, Temperance and the Working Class. And I produced that as a Kindle book, and that's been downloaded thousands and thousands of times. So again, it's popularising general temperance history, starting with the children and moving outwards. I'm now working on temperance tracts, which are really, really interesting. Millions of these were produced and they were given away. Were they just thrown away? Well, I'm arguing if they were thrown away, which is what people used to think, why did they keep being produced over a period of about 75 years? So I'm beginning now to look at the tracts, and that's the thing about temperance. It's a whole lifestyle, it's a whole complex cultural attitude, and there will never really be enough time to work on all of temperance, I think. At the moment I'm working on tracts, and that's another area I'm exploring. And images such as this British Temperance League pictorial tract shows how attractive they were to the people who might pick them up or be given them in pubs even. The secret of a broken engagement. Not only has it got a woman hiding, a man looking irate, and the discovery of some secret drinking, but it's even got a dog. So this is what I argue got people reading these things and hooked them, so that they read the interesting little story, the best or the closer of their day, and they got some temperance propaganda as well. So this is the sort of way in which material in this archive sparks off ideas about cultural history, about persuasion, about use of propaganda, and about influences and readership. Most of my work in the past has been done with larger items in the tracts, though. Bound volumes of periodicals, for example. This Band of Hope Chronicle, which for a period from the 1860s to the 1980s gave the voluntary workers ideas every month, with songs, with ideas about what to write on the blackboard, with ideas for games, with quizzes. And so the fact that this was more or less training people how to work with children, often people from the working class who had had little or no formal teacher training, and they went on to work with groups of children through their lives, I think that makes it a fascinating source. And I'm currently writing, just finishing off a book on the Band of Hope, which explores how the organisation helped adults to run this children's group so successfully for such a long period. So it's finding material in what apparently look like rather dusty copies of periodicals, but when you drill down into the things that people read every month over a period of years and years, you see the influence it had on their lives.